Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Motivational Success Stories, the place where stories of extraordinary people awaken the hero within all of us. Let me start with a simple, powerful question. What would you do if the world turned its back on you? If you faced rejection, if your grandest dreams were laughed at, and even your own team asked you to leave? Would you give up? Or would you get up and create something that would change the world forever? Today, I want you to join me on a journey of passion, heartbreak, resilience, and ultimate triumph. This is the story of Steve Jobs, a visionary who redefined what's possible and taught us never to settle. Get ready, because by the end of this video, you may never look at failure or your own potential the same way again. Part 1. Early Life. Searching for Meaning. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, California. His life began not in comfort, but in uncertainty. His biological parents put him up for adoption, entrusting his fate to the universe. That twist of fate placed him in the loving home of Paul and Clara Jobs, a middle-class couple in the heart of Silicon Valley. From an early age, Steve was different. He walked barefoot around his school. He obsessed over electronics with his adopted father, tinkering in the garage. He was deeply drawn to the arts and philosophies that most teenagers barely understood. He asked questions, big questions. Why am I here? What makes life meaningful? Why do things work the way they do? And could they be different? This hunger for understanding, for meaning, would one day shape not just his life, but ours as well. Jobs was fiercely intelligent, even stubborn. School bored him unless he found inspiration in a teacher or a subject. He would challenge authority, disrupt conventions, and he always had a unique perspective. He saw possibilities where others saw routines. Even in his teens, Steve was captivated by the counterculture movement of the late 60s and early 70s. He experimented with music, spirituality, and art. He dabbled in Eastern philosophy, searching for enlightenment and thinking about the dots he would one day connect in retrospect. What's important here is that Steve, before becoming an icon, struggled to fit in. He was searching, restless, always questioning, and always dreaming. Part 2. First Connections. High school, college, and meeting the Woz. It was in high school that Steve's path would truly change. At Homestead High, he met Steve Wozniak, Woz, a wizard with circuits, an engineering genius, and his future partner in changing the world. Wozniak and Jobs bonded over their shared love of pranks, technology, and creativity. They built little gadgets together like the Blue Box that could make free long-distance calls, a symbol of their early willingness to bend the rules, to question systems, and challenge the norm. When it came time for college, Steve chose Reed College in Portland, a school known for its artistic spirit. But just one semester in, he dropped out. Why? He felt he was wasting his adoptive parents' hard-earned money on classes that didn't resonate with him. Yet he didn't leave Reed entirely. He audited classes that fascinated him, like calligraphy, which would later inspire the beautiful typography of the first Macintosh computers. Steve survived by returning Coke bottles for 5-cent deposits, slept on friends' floors, and received free meals at the local Hare Krishna temple. Through hardship and wandering, Steve learned perhaps his most valuable lesson: do what you love. Trust your curiosity. Even if you can't see where it all leads, keep going. The dots will always connect in hindsight, not in the moment. Part 3. Startup in the Garage. The Birth of Apple. Back in California, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak began transforming their passion for electronics into something much bigger. The year was 1976. The two Steves, together with Ronald Wayne, founded Apple Computer in the garage of Jobs' parents. Their first product, the Apple I, wasn't glamorous. It was a circuit board that enthusiasts could build at home, but it lit the spark. Jobs, with his relentless energy and vision, sold the idea to Paul Terrell, owner of the bite shop, who ordered 50 units. It was a game changer. With hard work, resourcefulness, and youthful daring, they pulled it off. But it was Apple II that truly set the company apart. Unlike anything on the market, it had color graphics and was ready to use straight out of the box. Steve, always insisting on design and usability, shaped Apple into more than a technical company. It was an experience. By his mid-20s, Jobs became a millionaire as Apple went public and revolutionized the personal computer industry. But money was never the motivation for Steve. He was driven by a burning desire to make a dent in the universe, to build something truly meaningful. But success brought new challenges. Competition became fierce, and Jobs, with his perfectionism and demanding nature, clashed with team members, and eventually with the very executives he brought on board. Part 4. Facing Failure. The Apple Boardroom Betrayal. In the early 1980s, Jobs hired John Sculley, CEO of PepsiCo, to lead Apple. Jobs convinced him with the famous line, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or come with me and change the world?" Yet, within a few years, their partnership soured. The Apple Lisa failed, and the first Macintosh faced tepid sales compared to IBM's dominance. Jobs fought bitterly with the board over strategy and product direction. Then, in 1985, the unthinkable happened. The board sided with Sculley. Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple, the very company he had started in his parents' garage, the company that embodied his dream. Imagine pouring your soul into something, nurturing it from nothing, only to be pushed away. For Steve, it was a devastating personal and professional blow. Later, he recalled, "I didn't see it then, but getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life." He was humbled, devastated, but also strangely liberated. Part 5. Reinvention. NeXT and Pixar. Out in the wilderness, Steve Jobs didn't collapse. He channeled his pain into new ventures. He launched NeXT, a computer company that poured everything into creating the world's best workstation for higher education and research. The NeXT computers, though not commercially successful, were technological marvels, ahead of their time in design, speed, and usability. Meanwhile, Jobs bought the graphics group from George Lucas, which he would soon rename Pixar. He poured millions of his own money into the company. It was a huge risk. The team at Pixar was full of brilliant animators and engineers, but computer animation had never produced a feature-length movie before. Years of perseverance followed, financial difficulties, creative disputes, doubts from all sides. But Jobs never gave in. Finally, in 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the first full-length 3D animated film in history. It was a blockbuster, a technical, critical, and financial triumph. Pixar became the gold standard for animation, eventually joining forces with Disney and becoming a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse. Meanwhile, the software platform built by NeXT quietly gained followers, including a young programmer named Tim Berners-Lee, who used a NeXT computer to invent the World Wide Web. Through these years, Steve Jobs rebuilt himself. He sharpened his leadership, deepened his vision, learned difficult lessons in teamwork, humility, and focus. He discovered something every one of us should remember. Sometimes, life's deepest setbacks are just invitations to rise higher than we ever thought possible. Part 6. The Return to Apple, the Ultimate Comeback. As Steve Jobs was finding extraordinary success at Pixar, trouble was brewing at Apple. The company, once the darling of Silicon Valley, was on the brink of disaster. Apple's product lineup had grown bloated and confusing. Sales were plummeting. The company was losing hundreds of millions of dollars. Some experts predicted Apple would soon close its doors for good. And then, in 1996, a twist of fate. Apple decided to buy NeXT for its advanced software, bringing Jobs, the prodigal son, back to the company he had once been forced to leave. At first, Jobs returned in an advisory role, but it quickly became clear. Apple needed his vision more than ever. Jobs was different now. Gone was the brash, mercurial prodigy who had once been accused of arrogance and impatience. In his place stood a seasoned leader, still demanding, still passionate, but now focused, humbled, and even more determined. He wasted no time. Jobs ruthlessly simplified Apple's lineup, cutting dozens of failing products. His mantra was focus. He steered all efforts toward a handful of great ideas and demanded excellence in every detail. Jobs reinvigorated the design team, encouraged bold innovation, and reignited the spirit of creative rebellion that had once made Apple great. In 1998, Apple released the iMac, a computer unlike anything the world had seen. It was colorful, playful, and beautifully designed, breaking away from the beige boxes that dominated the market. The iMac was an instant hit, restoring Apple's reputation for innovation and reversing years of financial losses. But Jobs was only just beginning. He pushed the team to think beyond the computer. In rapid succession came the iPod and iTunes, revolutionizing how people experienced music. Then, in 2007, Jobs unveiled the iPhone, a device that put a computer, a phone, and an iPod in your pocket. The world hadn't seen anything like it. The iPhone didn't just disrupt the phone industry, it transformed how we communicate, work, and live. Apple soared. Its market value skyrocketed, and it became the world's most valuable company. Jobs had engineered one of the greatest comebacks in business history, returning not just to restore a struggling company, but to reshape the entire technology landscape. You may get knocked down. You may lose what you built. But as Jobs proved, if you have the courage to start again, armed with wisdom and humility, there is no limit to what you can achieve. Part 7. Philosophy and Leadership. Stay hungry. Stay foolish. Besides his products, Steve Jobs left something even more valuable, a new way of thinking, a mindset. Jobs was not simply a technologist. He was an artist, a poet, a philosopher. He believed technology was worthless unless it was beautiful and intuitive, unless it elevated the human experience. His obsession with simplicity was legendary. He would move heaven and earth to make a product more elegant, even if it meant discarding months of work. He would spend hours deciding on a font, a color, or the shape of a button. Some called it madness. Jobs called it caring deeply about the user's experience. He demanded the best from everyone, including himself. At times, he was tough, maybe even ruthless. Yet many of Apple's most remarkable employees said they produced the best work of their lives under his leadership. Why? Because Steve challenged them to think bigger, to care more, and to believe in their ability to do the impossible. Perhaps Jobs' most famous words come from his 2005 Stanford University commencement address. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. Everything else is secondary. He ended that speech with a message that had shaped his entire life. Stay hungry. Stay foolish. He wanted us to always seek, always question, always learn, and push boundaries no matter what others say. To fail, to learn, to keep going. Jobs taught us that innovation isn't about money or resources or even raw intelligence. It's about believing in an idea so deeply that you'll stop at nothing to make it real. Part 8. Legacy: changing the world and inspiring generations. Steve Jobs passed away on October 5, 2011, after a long battle with pancreatic cancer. He was only 56 years old. The world mourned the loss of a genius, a rebel, and a teacher. But Jobs' spirit endures. His fingerprints remain on every Apple product, in every Pixar film, and perhaps most importantly, in the millions of people he inspired to think differently. Jobs taught us that it is okay to be different, to question, to challenge, to risk, and to fail. He showed that setbacks are not dead ends, but opportunities to start anew. Through his highs and lows, Jobs lived a life that was radically authentic. What's the true measure of his legacy? It's not just the sleek devices or box office hits. It's the ripple effect. A culture of innovation, the idea that ordinary people can design extraordinary things, and the knowledge that your life can make a dent in the universe. Every time you use an iPhone, listen to music on an iPod, marvel at an animated movie, or wonder if there's a better way to do something, you're walking a path that Jobs helped to blaze. He proved that passion trumps credentials, resilience overcomes rejection, and creativity can trump convention. Perhaps the most important lesson: you don't have to accept the world as it is. You can imagine how it could be and work relentlessly to make it so. Part 9. Lessons for us. Actionable inspiration. So what lessons can we take from Steve Jobs' journey today? First, follow your curiosity. Life doesn't go in straight lines. Every experience, every hardship, even those you don't understand yet, can connect in ways you'll only appreciate later. Trust the process. Don't be afraid to walk a path less traveled. Second, don't fear failure or rejection. Remember, Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. That pain became the seed of his greatest triumphs. If you get knocked down, get back up. Use each setback as fuel. Learn and evolve. Third, strive for excellence. Jobs obsessed over detail, beauty, and function, not for ego, but to serve others and make a product that matters. Whatever you do, do it with passion, purpose, and the belief that you can change things for the better. Finally, stay hungry, stay foolish, never stop learning, dreaming, experimenting. Break out of the boxes life tries to put you in. Dare to imagine the impossible. Let Steve Jobs' journey remind you, you too have the power to shape your destiny, to rebound from failure, to challenge the ordinary, and to create something truly extraordinary. Thank you for joining me on this powerful journey through Steve Jobs' life. If his story inspired you, let me know in the comments below. When was a time you overcame failure or dared to pursue your dreams? What will you do today to think differently? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an epic story of motivation and success on Motivational Success Stories. Stay hungry, stay foolish, and never stop believing in your vision. See you in the next video.